I'm currently standing in the middle of one of the busiest airport runways in the world. But don't worry, it's all good. It's currently shut because construction teams back there behind me are working to resurface it before tomorrow's first plane touches down pretty much where I'm standing. Now, that plane has already taken off and is currently in the air on its way here. So the race is seriously on.
Now, we know that resurfacing a runway bit by bit each night for over 3 kilometres might sound like one of the world's most boring construction projects. But this is no ordinary bit of road laying. It's a critical piece of infrastructure that millions of people, thousands of businesses, the UK's wider economy, and airports around the world all depend on. The stakes are insanely high, and what this team's trying to pull off in such a tight time frame puts them in a different league of pressure.
If a piece of the runway breaks out and ends up in an aircraft engine, the result's potentially catastrophic, because there's no room for a mistake.
If you've ever travelled into London, you're probably familiar with Gatwick Airport. It's one of the UK's busiest, home to more than 50 airlines flying to over 200 destinations. But when it first opened back in the 1930s, it was just a small flyers club. Over the years, it's been used as a public aerodrome, Royal Air Force Base, and then in the 1950s it was renovated and officially opened as London's second airport. For a while, Gatwick was run by a government agency, but in the 80s it was privatised and had to start finding its own revenue. Since its official opening, Gatwick's gone from seeing less than 500,000 people pass through each year to more than 45 million at its peak in 2019. But that all dipped massively when the pandemic hit in 2020. Just look at how aircraft traffic around Gatwick plummeted in March alone. To say that's been bad for business would be putting it lightly. For around 2 years, Gatwick was losing roughly £1 million a day on average. And losses like that make construction projects like this a tough sell for a business that needs to cut costs. But as travellers head back to the skies, Gatwick's working hard to return to full capacity.
It's difficult to overstate just how much goes into making every travel experience possible. Throughout this 1,600-acre campus, there are people issuing tickets, checking passports, manning security, loading bags, monitoring the weather, directing air traffic, and so much more. And being here with the team up close and getting to go behind the scenes shows me that the work never really stops. There are just a few hours of the day where that constant flow of planes slows down a bit, and even then there are hundreds of people getting ready for the next rush to begin the following morning.
Of course, the runway is the backbone of the whole operation. Without it, the airport becomes more like a shopping mall with a car park. If this single stretch of asphalt is out of service, the whole thing is thrown off. Flights get delayed, terminals get crowded, baggage claim gets backed up, and pretty soon you have a whole lot of stressed out travellers. And not just in the UK, this has a knock-on effect at airports around the world. Gatwick has 2 terminals, north and south, but there's just one massive runway for all incoming and outgoing flights, making this one of the busiest single runway airports in the world. There's a second smaller runway that's on standby, but it's currently only used in good visibility or for emergencies. The main runway is 44 metres wide and over 3.3 kilometres long, the size of more than 1,400 tennis courts. It was built 70 years ago with concrete and has been paved over with new asphalt over the decades, but it wasn't designed to last forever. On a busy day, the main runway can handle more than 950 arrivals and departures. At some points, 55 planes are flying in and out of Gatwick every hour, and flight paths need to be meticulously coordinated around the availability of the runway. Squeezed in between the waves of traffic, a gap is created for the airfield operations team to run in and make sure there's no debris or birds in the way. To make planning even more complicated, everything can change with a shift of the breeze. Planes actually work best if they're flying into the wind, so if the wind is blowing to the west, everyone flies in and out of the east. But if the direction of the wind changes in the evening, everything flips to the other direction. It's a 24-hour operation, and the margin for error is tight.
So Gatwick has an incredibly busy runway. It does up to 950 aircraft movements on a busy day, 55 movements an hour in the middle of the day. It takes quite a pounding on the surface. So what we're doing here is replacing the surface of the runway to make it last for about another 7 or 8 years.
I thought publishing a YouTube video every week was tough, but this is a whole new level of deadline pressure. For months, the construction team at Gatwick is working with military precision to repave the runway between around 9:30 PM and 5 AM every night.
And, the stakes are really important. All of our airlines expect us to deliver the schedule every day. All of them will be queuing up at 6:30 in the morning, waiting to get on that runway. And if we don't hand that runway back on time, the airline schedules are screwed for the rest of the day, sometimes 2 or 3 days.
This will actually be the 5th time that the Gatwick runway has been rehabilitated. It was last resurfaced in 2012. This new batch of asphalt is designed to last around 7 years, and they're focusing the most resilient bits of it on the parts of the runway that the planes traffic the most.
It's not just your standard asphalt that gets stuck on the road outside your house or the pavement you walk down every day. So you've got a really high specification material, which is why we have to build a batching plant on site so that we can batch the material here ourselves.
As you're probably realising, this isn't your standard construction project. We're talking about an airport here, which means there's a lot of security. Before anyone, including me and the B1M film crew, can get to the construction site, you have to pass through the same security as if you were flying. That means every night more than 100 people and 40 trucks full of material have to be screened before any work can begin. It's probably not a great idea to show up late for this shift. At around 6:30 every night, 2 asphalt production plants are switched on in preparation for the night shift. While it may look like the asphalt that's out in front of your house, this batch is made a lot stronger. It's going to be pummeled by hundreds of massive aircraft every day. About half an hour before any overnight planes are rerouted to the standby runway, Gatwick meets with Colas and the wider contractor team to plan the night ahead. Technically, this project isn't that complicated. The team is ripping up the old asphalt and laying down new material. It's the same process that's used on runways around the world. But here at Gatwick, they don't have the luxury of shifting all their flights to another runway while construction takes place. So at 9:30 PM sharp, a crew of more than 100 people start a pretty dramatic race against time.
Believe it or not, this is currently Gatwick Airport's runway. It's the middle of the night, but it is a hive of activity here. Hundreds of people in this construction team are working to take up the old surface of the runway, lay a new surface and get the runway checked and reopened again, all before those planes that are currently in the air start landing.
The work moves in a sequence that's repeated every night until they finally get to the very end of the runway. First, the lights that guide pilots are turned off and removed. Then, a fleet of machines lift up the existing asphalt and take it to be recycled. Next comes the paving machines that lay 2 new layers of asphalt. The biggest challenge is making sure it cools in time before the first planes land, and this being London, the rain is your enemy. Once the new surface is laid, a team of electricians put all the lighting back in place, ready for the next day. Now, this is all happening in a matter of hours every night, while flights are landing just over 100 metres away on the standby runway, and all while a queue of planes are lining up just off the site to carry the first passengers of the day. If the team gets any more than 15 minutes off track, they need to move straight into one of the many contingency plans that are kept in a playbook.
We sat for weeks in rooms coming up with every conceivable failure you could possibly come up with. In a normal job, would you do it? No. But when every 15 minutes is critical, actually having the solution and not having to stand there for half an hour and work out what it is the difference between failure and success quite often.
If they're even a few minutes late cleaning up, or the asphalt isn't totally cool, there'll be a lot of angry airlines and passengers waiting to get moving. Anyone that's ever travelled through an airport will know that's a demographic you don't really want to upset. Gatwick's ambitions go beyond this project. Remember that standby runway they have in case of emergencies? Well, they're in the proposal phase of turning that into a fully functional second runway. The plan to do that has been in the works for years now, but it's faced a lot of opposition from people who say the added noise and air pollution would be bad for the region. But it would make construction projects like this a whole lot easier, and it would enable even more flights to pass through here every day.
So all the time we have to be really focused on the fact that we're here to deliver a service for our airlines, and if we don't do that, it has impacts that can literally go worldwide, and that's quite sobering when you start thinking about it, and it's why sometimes I try and avoid thinking about it too much. But yeah, that's just how interconnected worldwide aviation is. One runway resurfacing can knock on around the world.
Getting to spend the night with construction teams like this is a really humbling experience. You know, what looks like a simple bit of resurfacing isn't that. It's a major operation that's been months in the planning and it's taken hundreds of people to organise. The work these guys are doing is depended on by millions of passengers, hundreds of businesses and the wider economy. And for me, really underlines once again the impact of this industry. You know, it touches every single part of our lives and enables so much of our world to happen. Guys, if you enjoyed this video and you want to get more from the definitive video channel for construction, from the channel that takes you onto airport runways, make sure you're subscribed to the B1M.